What's it called when a taxi farts? An Ubertoot. It's not funny, I know, it's all I could come up with. What's up YouTube, welcome back to Whacked Out eSig. I hope you liked that little festive intro. This is the Ubertoot UTA2 clone RTA rebuildable tank atomizer. It's a mouthful, I know. And I have a disclaimer, okay? If I could find an authentic version of this tank, because they're out of stock from the manufacturer and they're really good, so no one wants to sell their authentic that they have, right? And if I had $200 plus to spend on an authentic version of this tank, I would. But for those reasons, I have the clone, okay? Secondly, if you take clones out of the equation, okay, pretend clones don't exist to make all the authentic clone haters happy, right? Take clones out of the equation, what's left? There's drippers for the people who like to build. And yes, I do enjoy drippers, and you can find ones that are good for mouth to lung and flavor and all that. But dripping all day, every day is inconvenient, right? I don't want to have to walk around with the bottle dripping all day, maybe having it leak everywhere. It's just not convenient. Secondly, there are sub-ohm tanks, which I don't like. They're generally too airy. There's way too much airflow. They blow too big of a cloud, and they drink through way too much juice for me. On that same end, there are the new rebuildable tank atomizers like the Aromizer, the Bellis, the Creus, all those things. And yes, they are very good vapes, but that's not how I like to vape on a daily basis, right? Again, way too much airflow, too much clouds, and drinks through the juice. Finally, there's stuff like the i320 by Freemax. And that vapes really well. I really enjoy the vape from that, and I can vape it all day, but I've been building for a couple years now. I'm past having to continually buy replaceable coils for a tank, right? Plus the capacity is pretty small. I want something that I can take out all day and not have to bring a bottle, right? That's it. There is nothing this style that is high quality, affordable, is built for mouth to lung, and just gives off an amazing vape consistently that's rebuildable as well on the market, right? So there is a gap in the market, and if you notice all these big companies, Aspire, Inikin, Kangertech, all them, they're going to start releasing a bunch of starter kits over the holiday season and into 2016, and they are made more for mouth to lung. And as that technology progresses, we're going to notice throughout 2016, all the big companies are going to be making tanks like this that are affordable. And then the ones that have been doing it for years that charge crazy amounts of money for it, they're going to have to adapt, and we'll see where it goes from there, right? So that was a bit of a ramble. I hope it sounded as rational as it did in my head. So without wasting any of your time, let's go down, take a look at what's in the box, and I'll show you how I like to build and set up this tank. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the packaging for the Ubertoot clone, and as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same as the original, which I don't think they needed to do that, but I mean, it's the packaging, right? So inside, you get a whole bunch of shit. Besides from the full tank, which I have outside of the box right now, there is the full size, which is the 5mm plastic tank, the chimney that goes in the full size, then there is the mini in stainless steel, which is 3.5 mils, I believe. I'll check that. And then the full size stainless steel one, there is a, if I can get this out, there's a box of extra screws and O-rings. There is a filling deck and also a build deck that are just chunks of stainless steel. So I'll use them in the review so you can get a good idea of it. But yeah, that's the packaging that it comes in. And this is the Ubertoot in the mini version, fully disassembled. And as you can see, there's a good few parts to it. Start with the base. It's just a very simple two-post design with the airflow coming from the bottom. It looks pretty dirty in there. That's because the liquids I was using are pretty dark and they've stained it quite a bit. There's an O-ring around here that holds the glass in place and kind of makes a seal. Here's your airflow. Nothing extreme, but it looks quite big. And then you can close it off and open it. Very simple, and it's tight, but it's not difficult to do, especially when it's on a mod. It makes it a lot easier. And yeah, that's the build deck. The easiest build deck I've ever used to build on. On top of that is the kind of wicking holder, if that makes sense. When I go into the build tutorial, you understand what that means, but you kind of just line this up, and then you put your wicking through either these holes on the side or these two notches. And then to control your juice flow, this goes on top, and then you can move this around to where you want your juice flow to be and how big you want it to be, etc. Then you have the top cap of the deck pretty much, and that screws on there, and then your cotton will be coming through here. Then it just screws on the tank. Very, very smooth threading. I wasn't expecting it to be that smooth. And then finally the drip tip that comes with it. It's just like a plastic or Delrin PMMA, something along those lines, drip tip. And yeah, that's it, fully assembled. It looks pretty good, has frosted glass, and as you can see, there aren't really any damages to the glass, to the plastic, sorry. If you can see that, there is a very, very slight crack, and that's from where I dropped the tank. It's not from tank cracking juice or anything like that. So let's get into the build tutorial. So for this particular build that I'm going to be doing, you're going to want about 6 inches of 26 gauge Canthal wire, something to wrap the wire around. I'm using a 3mm rod. Whatever wicking material you want to use. I'm using just a pad of Japanese organic cotton. You're going to want an Allen key. It comes with the kit, so you don't have to worry about finding the right size, but it is a quite small one. You're going to want wire cutters and a scissors. So I'm using my old trusty coil jig for this. I would be using the brand new Coilmaster V3 that I got in the mail, but since I'm going to be doing a spaced build for this, it doesn't make much sense, and I don't know how to do space builds on the Coilmaster, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap 5 times spaced. And it doesn't need to be perfect right now. You can see that it's kind of, well, it's not too bad, but it's just kind of wonky. What I'm going to do now is squeeze this down against the base, and when it springs back into place, you get a nice spaced build. So that was very simple. We'll take out the coil, and here is the base, right? The building base that it comes with. This thing is heavy, man. This is like a substantial block of metal, so should be pretty easy. I'll try and zoom in on this because it is pretty small. So this is where the Allen key comes into play, right? We want to unscrew these just until the hole is visible. And I have noticed that they're not exactly facing each other, if you can see that. They're kind of curved in, which I guess that's done on purpose. I'm not really sure. It doesn't make much of a difference. It's still really easy to build on, but I thought that was something interesting. So we just take the 2 wires, the 2 ends of the coil, put it through each hole. And I kind of want to squeeze the coil together again. I want it to be spaced, but I don't want it to be a massive coil, right? Then I'm going to pull on each end, and it's going to look kind of bad at first, kind of diagonal. That's because they are not perfectly straight. But what I'll do now is screw in the Allen screws again. And there we go. So you can see that it looks pretty wrong. It doesn't look right. It's not centered. All I need to do is twist the rod that I'm using, and there we go. It's perfectly over that coil, over that air hole, sorry. So now we just need the wire cutters, and I can show you. You can either use the wire cutters if you want to, or I'll show you the wire cutter first. So you put it right up against it, cut, and that comes off. Or if you want to do it, you can either use your finger or a tweezers like I'm going to use now, and just wiggle it, and it should pop off fine, because these Allen screws definitely hold the wire in place pretty well. So there we go. It would be a good idea right now to transfer this onto a mod to make sure that these coils are glowing, that this coil is glowing evenly. So I just grabbed the Cloudpore Mini Plus. That was the closest thing. I have it at 20 watts. I'm just going to pulse this just to make sure that it's glowing evenly. And the coil is not perfect. I can use the tweezers that I have to kind of play around, but I want to keep it spaced, right? I really hope I don't mess this up now, but that's looking pretty good. It's heating from the inside out. It's not a perfect coil, but it will do the trick for sure. So let's see what it's reading at. 0.73. That's about perfect. It normally stays around 0.7, so that's what I'm looking for. Let me turn this back off for the duration of the build. And now we can cut our cotton. So I've already taken off the back sheet of this pad. So you can see there it has that sheet on the end. On this one it's more fluffy. I take off one end just to make it kind of fluffier to work with. I find that makes it more absorbent, but I keep one end on so that it's still easy to manipulate. So I'm just kind of eyeing it here, but I'm gonna guess around 3.5 millimeters since I'm using a 3mm coil. And now I'm just gonna roll it up. You're gonna want to do this with clean hands, because most people know this, but if you're new to building or whatever, the oil from your hands can get on the cotton, and then you're left with a kind of weird oily taste. So just clean your hands or use gloves, whatever is easier for you. So I'm going to twist up this end, thread it through the coil. And when you're pulling it through, you want to feel resistance, but you don't want the coil to be moving, right? So that looks pretty even on either side. We're going to take this part and just kind of put the cotton threads through it. This is kind of difficult to do on camera because it's pretty tall. And then I take my tweezers, pull up each leg of cotton, hold them up while you push this down. And as you can see, there is this short kind of curve that needs to be facing the coil, and the larger side needs to be going around behind the posts. And that way you can fit your cotton through there perfectly, and everything's gonna fit. So you have a couple options when it comes to wicking. You can either keep your cotton in these two holes on the side, and then when you close it off, you wick through those massive holes, or you can close it off to get those two sides. So that's what I like to do. I find that I get flooding when I use the massive one, and what I do is I take this top part and twist it so that these two rings are kind of in line with the coil, not perpendicular, but just kind of in line with it. Filter that through the bottom, and then take this end and do the exact same. I can actually move this over a bit more. And as you can see, the coil is lined up with these two holes. And there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the juice flow control, and just like there's a short curve and a long curve for that, there's the same thing on here. You can see it upside down. So I'm going to take the short curve and line it up with the short curve there, but then I can move it around to adjust my juice flow. So I'm going to move it just over those two slots and make sure it's down good, and that's where I'm going to leave it. So the next step is to take the top cap of it and screw it down, but not yet. What I'm going to do first is chop this cotton. So what I'm going to do is kind of hard to explain. I'm going to take the end of this cotton that's going through the bottom hole, then I'm going to wrap it around and push it through the top so that it sticks in there, but it doesn't cover the coil. So I need to kind of guesstimate where I want it to be. And this is even tougher to do on camera, so bear with me. That's one side done. Okay, so that could probably be refined a bit. That might be too much cotton, but we'll play around with it and see what we can do. So now you can take your Allen key and just kind of turn this around and push it through that hole. And I can already see that that's probably going to be too much cotton. So I'll refine again, chop the ends. You want to get that cotton in the top hole, and when you look down there it should block the entire thing, but what I like to do is kind of brush this cotton down while maintaining that hole plugged up. And what that does is just kind of fills all the space but keeps the cotton fluffy so that it's not choking the coil. And by choking the coil I mean blocking the liquid so that it can't get to the coil, and what that would do is give you dry hits. So I'll take the other end of the cotton now, thread it through that hole, brush it again, and there we go. I had a lot of problems. You can see in there it's still pretty messy, but you can kind of play around with it, move it out of the way of the coil. Yeah, I had a lot of problems when it came to wicking this at first, but as soon as I tried this method I haven't had any problems at all. So yeah, let's kind of prime this up. So as you saw, the wicking holes are massive, and you can play around with them and get them to pretty much wick whatever thickness of juice that you would like. But the way I've been using it, I've been vaping. This is a massive bottle, sorry, it's not really showing up. This is a Jughead's Vape Mates Tribute. It's a 50/50 PGVG liquid, and it's in 6 milligram, and it's a chocolate mint. And I love anything chocolate mint when it comes to vaping, especially with a 6 milligram and a mouth to lung tank. This is vape dream come true, basically. So just like a regular sub-ohm tank that you are used to using now, or not, either way, this is what you do. You kind of just prime it up. You don't want to soak the coils, but if you're using a cotton that can absorb pretty quickly like this one, it just kind of wicks it up and makes sure you're not going to get a dry hit from the start. So take the top part, and what this part does is obviously it covers the coil so that it's not going to flood, but it also holds the juice flow control in place so that that's not going to move around either. And just like there is a rebuilding base, there is a refilling base. So take out the drip tip, put this in there, take your juice and fill. I don't think this is necessary because you can just hold it and do it, but I mean whatever, it's cool that it comes with it. So this really doesn't seem like it holds a lot of juice, and 3.5 mils isn't much, but it's very easy to fill, and all you need to do now is pop your coil in. I don't normally fill it like this, but I guess it's in the base, so it kind of makes sense. Screw it on, and it stops. You know, you can't really over crank this, which is a really good thing because a lot of people struggle with that. And there you have it, folks. Take the drip tip, put it back in, and you are ready to vape. Okay, so I took out the drip tip that came with it and put in this one. It came with the Stingray X mechanical mod that I got a long time ago, and I haven't used this drip tip in a while, but I miss using it, and it's a perfect fit for this tank. So when I first got this tank, I had no idea how the juice flow control and the wicking worked, and I could not for the life of me get a wicking job into this that did not flood, right? It didn't really leak, but it flooded all the time, and it just, although the flavor was amazing, it kept flooding, and I don't like a gurgly vape, and it was annoying. So with this method that I just did, that you just watched, if you did watch it, I haven't had any problems with it. It wicks perfectly. Every time I take a pull, some bubbles come up, and it's amazing. The only problems that I consistently have with this tank is, well, there's only two. The first one is liquid tends to build up in that little reservoir where the drip tip goes, and the only reason I can see that happening is because with the airflow setting that I put on this, it's basically completely closed off, and it really leaves no option for the liquid to go anywhere except right up the tube and kind of pools up there. So I don't think there's any way around that for the way I like to vape, but it's not that big of a deal. Whenever I start to get a little bit of spit back, I just take out the drip tip, wipe out that bit, and put it back in, and it's cool, right? The second thing is, you know, the top cap for the deck, right? The part that holds in the juice flow control and that covers the coils. If I don't screw that in completely, the next time I take off the deck from the tank, it stays inside of there, and then I have to kind of get a tweezers and pull it out and then put it back on. It's not really a problem, it's just kind of annoying when that happens, but as long as I screw it on tight enough, it's completely fine as well. Besides from that, there are no problems with this tank. It costs $30 roughly, right? I got this from GearBest, and it costs $30. And all the stuff you get in the box, I mean, you get the two bases, one to rebuild, one to fill. You get the stainless steel shorty and the big tank. You get the plastic shorty and the big tank. You get a tool to build with, and the different chimney and a drip tip. For $30, that's amazing. If you get the authentic, it doesn't even come with the shorty tanks. You have to buy them separately. So it's just a fantastic deal for what you get, and for the way I like to vape, I want nothing else. I need to note the flavor, because the flavor is amazing. If you've heard of the Ubertoot before, the number one thing you hear about it is the flavor is fantastic, and the clone is no different, right? I get the flavor that I want. I get enough vapor. All I want to do is see some vapor. I don't need a massive cloud. As long as I see some vapor, it plays into that whole habit of how smoking used to be, right? Second thing is, if I open up this airflow completely, I can take a restricted lung hit like what I would take on the i320 that I reviewed a while ago. And that's even bigger clouds, right? But with 6 milligram nicotine, lung hitting it is just, it's a bit too much for me now. But mouth to lung, it's perfect. I love the juice flow control, because if you wanted to put really thick liquids in here, you could. You just have to adjust the juice flow control to have a bigger hole that can wick more juice. It's very logical, it's practical, and it makes a lot of sense. And that's about it for the tank. If you want to find out where to get it, the link will be in the description to GearBest, where I got mine. But I'll also put the link in the description for the original manufacturer, because it's only right, I think, to give them credit, because they made this tank. They designed this tank, and the only two reasons I don't have it is because, first of all, you can't find it anywhere, and the second of all, I don't have $200 plus to spend on it, right? But I do appreciate the quality, and I have to thank them. Ubertoot is a British company. I have to thank them for creating this masterpiece, basically. So yeah, who I think this is for the people that want to start rebuilding, but they enjoy the kind of vape they have now, right? They're not vaping on sub-ohm tanks. They're not vaping, they don't want to blow massive clouds and have to drip and all that. They can get a rebuildable tank they can save money on buying coils, and they can get a much better version of the vape that they're vaping now. If they're on a Nautilus, if they're on any other Clearmizer or anything like that, an Ego style setup, this is the next step for you, and I think you may never want to change. Obviously, when more stuff like this comes out that are affordable, innovation will progress and better things will come out. But for now, this is pretty amazing, and I think anyone who likes to vape like I do will enjoy this 100%. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.